Now, over the past few months, it's been no secret that Wrath of the Lich King Classic servers have been on the fast decline, and what seemed to be the very beating heart of Classic has quickly begun to let the side down in many ways. And it's fair enough to say that Season of Discovery really is the main focus at the moment, and is what truly seems to be keeping Classic alive, as we're gearing up to head into the promising Phase 2, alongside a helping hand of Vanilla era servers, whereas Wrath has sadly died a death and fallen viciously to the wayside, throwing the hopeful future for reliving expansions in Classic WoW into disregard or a kind of ambiguous area for the first time since vanilla servers launched. Now, it certainly would be naive to think that the announcement for Cataclysm Classic hasn't played a big factor in Wrath's downfall, and players that simply dislike their memories of Cata or don't want to play into Cata have dropped like flies from Wrath Classic. But there's also several reasons for Wrath's downfall that we previously visited, such as Season of Discovery's release, retail getting back into a healthy state and claiming players back, lots of dead servers throughout Wrath's whole tenure, and finally a real big lack for the feel of a solid and united Wrath community that feels like you're all a part of the same experience or journey. A community that really does feel vibrant in Season of Discovery, Vanilla era servers, retail WoW, and one that was certainly there for the start of Wrath. And yet somehow, one of the very factors that supposedly was a contributor to killing Wrath does actually stand the potential of bringing back that exact community vibe that has been missing for a long time in WoW Classic in terms of reliving expansions. And it could actually be that Cataclysm Classic might just be an unforeseen hero in some ways when it comes to pumping back that true community feel into this sector of Classic WoW. But just before we jump in, as always, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here, as it helps me out a bunch. So thanks very much indeed. Now, let's get on with it. Now, there is one large positive aspect to Cataclysm's announcement, which comes as part of a double-edged sword, and that has been quite ignored for some time, due to the overwhelmingly loud negativity that is pumped out by people who dislike Cata. And it's that there is a large and mostly silent fan base that are excited to go into Cataclysm, as just saying that you like this expansion in any manner is a surefire way to get yourself into a heated debate. And by heated debate, I mean being shouted at by multiple neckbeards. From my experience in playing through the original Cataclysm, there were a lot of social issues that did affect my experience of the expansion, and we've certainly seen some of those come around again, such as players quitting over the mere thought of progressing past the Lich King, or quitting in anticipation of their dislike for Cataclysm. And this came from the fact that Cataclysm brought about a large change to both gameplay and the world, throughout the large-scale world revamp that destroyed vanilla zones that millions of players loved and had attached their great memories to, as well as some major class redesigns and changes to how guilds functioned at their core. And alas, it was certainly a big risk to take for Blizzard at the time, ultimately being a very controversial one at that, where I thought changes to guilds overall were really positive, yet changes to the world and classes were questionable, but my feelings towards them weren't as negative as a lot of other people's. But as a result, in an original Cata, now with Wrath Classic, such changes on the way has caused a mass exodus of players, where people who I've played with since Burning Crusade Classic stated they just quit Wrath the second they heard Cata's announcement. Yet in chaos there is opportunity, and a strange upside to such an exodus, as whilst it's likely the overall player base will be far smaller for Cataclysm, there's the potential to grow this community into something healthy once again. Now, players who are staying for Cata are typically going to fit into one of three camps. Number one, it's players who really liked Cata back in the day and are excited for its release. Number two is new players who didn't see it the first time round and are going into it without any prejudice or bad feelings towards the expansion on a personal level. And number three is old players who are open to trying Cata again, but this time with a bit less of a pessimistic view. And it's fair to say I'm in this camp, with mixed memories of the expansion, both good and bad. But ultimately, I'm interested to try it again now I know what we're headed into. So there is the potential here for something big to happen, in terms of building a solid community that feels united once again, rather than the current wasteland of purgatory we're stuck in for Wrath Classic and ICC at this current time, as it seems the people sticking around are more likely to form a positive community in some ways. As currently there's a lot of discontent for Wrath where it's at the moment and the fact we are headed into Cataclysm. But when Cata starts, this should have been shifted out of the way by then. And like I said, despite being someone who doesn't have great memories of the expansion itself, there are a lot of things that I am looking forward to now, outside that final encounter in Dragon Soul. For For example, the Worgen starting zone in Gilneas is just great. So best believe I'll be leveling some alts in Cata. And further to this, we do get the rejig of the leveling experience from 1 to 58 now, as we will be in the new world, which for better or worse I'm curious to experience again. The new changes to guilds that feature achievements that can be worked towards for rewards such as new heirlooms and mounts I think was a great feature, and it's one that refreshed guilds in a way that was much needed at the time. Despite the fact that a lot of people did want guilds to just remain a lot simpler, I am looking forward to it. And currently in retail we've got time walking for Cataclysm dungeons and Firelands. And to be fair, I forgot how fun a lot of these dungeons were, and they're pretty interesting at that, as well as the fact that the first tier of raiding alongside Firelands in Cataclysm was really great. And even the dungeons leading up to Dragon Soul, where you head into the future and see the end of time, I think are still pretty top tier too. And whilst there were complaints of a content drought in Wrath Classic, it does seem, as per the 2024 roadmap, that the Classic WoW team are getting a real shift on with Cataclysm. So hopefully this won't be as much of a problem. Yet saying all of that, there's still plenty of room to mess up Cataclysm, and the expansion gets enough hate as it is, a lot of which I think is justified at times. And I think Blizzard will really need to clean up the server issues and balance them correctly, the same way we've seen them do this with Season of Discovery, ensuring that balance is remained in terms of the Horde to Alliance ratio and server population, making sure that we have fewer servers but of higher quality, rather than a stream of dead servers like Wrath. But overall, with Season of Discovery currently taking the mantle for Classic WoW and running the show, I think there's a real opportunity for Cataclysm Classic to exceed expectations and restore a bit of faith and community to the Classic WoW progression of revisiting old expansions. Now, there is a big risk that we won't get this community if the interest isn't there on a simple base level, or if Cat isn't properly maintained and worked on, resulting in an absolute ghost town like mentioned, with echoing dead servers once more. But sometimes change is good. There's been a lot of bad vibes to Wrath Classic, with people feeling like the glory days weren't actually quite the glory days. After the first initial boom of Phase 1, the whole experience feeling like it was just a bit of a general downward slope. To me, this shouts that maybe a re-experience of Cata will be the reverse, where lots of players who dislike the expansion yet want to re-experience it will then think it actually wasn't that bad after all. And as someone who didn't enjoy Cataclysm that much on its original release, I'm entirely open to having my opinion changed. So I'll be heading into the expansion with an open mind and a willingness to actually like it this time round, and not get in my own way of memories from 13 years ago. And well, if I'm trash for being open to it, then best believe I'm the biggest piece of trash going. Hell yeah, baby! So then do let me know what you think in the comments. Are you excited for Cataclysm, or open to experiencing it again? Or do you think it'll just be as terrible as you remember? Do let me know in the comments. As always, if you're new here, feel free to like and subscribe. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.